15 worst pickup trucks to buy in 2026, ranked bad to disaster. 3 days ago, federal safety investigators opened a new engineering analysis into General Motors. The subject was not a defect, the subject was the repair. Nearly 1 million trucks and sport utility vehicles are covered. 499 owners have filed complaints saying their engine failed after the dealer had already performed the recall work. 473 of those had the approved fix. 26 had a brand new engine dropped in, and that one failed too. That reframes this whole video. The problem in 2026 is not that trucks break. Trucks have always broken. The problem is that the remedy stopped being a remedy, and you are the one paying to find that out. The average American paid $65,964 for a new full-size pickup in March, according to Kelley Blue Book. That is not a vehicle anymore. That is a second mortgage with a tailgate. So here are 15 pickups I would not spend that on right now, ranked from bad to disastrous. Let me tell you how a truck earned a spot, because that matters more than the countdown. 3 bars. First, the failure has to be documented somewhere with a federal file number behind it, not shouted on a forum by one angry man in Ohio. Second, it has to cost you real money you cannot dodge, either at the repair counter or at trade-in time. Third, and this is the one that separated the merely annoying from the genuinely bad this year, the manufacturer's own fix has to have failed to settle it. That third bar is why some very popular nameplates are on here and some unpopular ones are not. I do not care whether a truck is fashionable. I care whether the company that sold it can make it stop doing the thing. If that is the kind of homework you want done before you write a check, subscribe. That is the whole job here. Number 15 is the softest landing on the list. And I want to be fair to it, the Hyundai Santa Cruz. The trap is not the new one. It is the used one. The 2022 and 2023 trucks came with an 8-speed wet dual clutch transmission. And in late 2022, Hyundai recalled 53,142 vehicles across several models because an internal fault in that transmission's electric oil pump could leave you coasting with no drive power. 229 incidents were reported before the recall. A second campaign covered rough shifts, hesitation, and power loss. And in some cases, the transmission simply got replaced. Here's the part that tells you everything. For 2026, Hyundai quietly deleted the dual clutch and installed a conventional 8-speed automatic with a torque converter. No press conference. When an engineering department pulls its own showpiece and puts the boring part back in, that is a confession. So my verdict is narrow. Skip any Santa Cruz from 2022 or 2023 with the turbocharged engine. The 2026 with the new automatic is a decent little runabout and one of the easier small trucks to get in and out of. Just do not ask it to tow anything heavy, and do not pay truck money for it. Number 14, and this one hurts to say, is the Ford Super Duty. These are still the best-selling heavy-duty trucks in America, and there are good reasons for that. But in 2025, Ford issued more than 150 recalls, which is an industry record that no one wanted. Ford's position is that this proves they are catching things early. I will let you decide how comforting that is. Look at what landed on the newest trucks. In December, Ford recalled 6,819 2026 F-250 and F-350 pickups because the right rear axle shaft may have been improperly heat treated. Improperly heat treated means brittle. A brittle axle shaft can fracture, and a fractured axle shaft means your truck will roll while it is sitting in park. Then in March, Ford recalled 7,105 Super Duty diesels a second time for the same high-pressure fuel pump problem because the software fix from the first recall was the wrong software, and the front-end shake owners call the death wobble, which Ford redesigned the suspension to cure, is still being reported on the current generation. Forget the recall numbers for a second. Here is the free move that protects you on any truck, any brand, for the rest of your life. Run the vehicle identification number through the federal recall database yourself before you agree to anything. Then separately ask the seller for a printed recall completion report. Those are two different documents, and the gap between them is where people get hurt. That is the pattern with every truck on this list. Somebody with a clipboard is counting on you not knowing which question to ask. That is why I put together the 500,000 miles Car Care Bible. One section is nothing but 30 common shop upsells and the exact sentence to say back, $27 at carcarebible.com, which is less than 1 hour of shop labor almost anywhere in this country. Scan the code on screen, use the link below, or type the address. Number 13, Toyota Tundra. Predicted reliability, 41 out of 100. For a company that built its entire reputation on the opposite of this, that number is remarkable. The cause is the 3.4 twin-turbo V6 that replaced the old 5.7 V8, and the failure is not a rattle or a leak. Machining debris left inside the engine at the factory gets trapped at the number one main bearing. Underload that bearing wears, oil pressure drops, and the engine seizes, sometimes at highway speed. Roughly 270,000 vehicles have been pulled in across 3 separate recalls now. The first in May of 2024, the second in November of 2025, the third in May of this year, adding 43,566 more 2024 Tundras built between the 7th of February and the 5th of August of 2024. 3 recalls in 2 years for 1 failure. To be fair to Toyota, they did say the first fix solved it. Oh, wait, but the moment that changed my opinion came on the 15th of June. Toyota told federal regulators that owners in the newest group would not automatically get new engines. Instead, dealers will run inspection software, read the bearing, and pull stored driving data to see whether the truck has been worked hard enough for the software to be confident in its own answer. If the software cannot confirm the bearing is going bad, you get your keys back. Toyota is not doing anything illegal here, and inspection-based remedies are common. My objection is narrower. If a company has not publicly identified a design flaw, is still building the same engine, and has already watched 2 fixes fail to close the case, then a clean bill of health based on driving data moves the risk off the manufacturer and onto the owner. Here is what to actually do. If you own one, get the inspection done and keep the paperwork forever, because that document is what a future buyer will want to see. If you are shopping the pre-2022 Tundra with the naturally aspirated 5.7 V8 is one of the great truck engines of the last 25 years, and it is sitting right there on used lots, slower, thirstier, and it doesn't eat itself. Number 12 is the Chevrolet Silverado 1500 at 40 out of 100. And this is where we come back to that federal investigation I opened with. The 6.2-liter V8 internal code L87 was recalled in April of last year across roughly 600,000 American trucks and sport utility vehicles from the 2021 through 2024 model years. The stated cause was a supplier problem with connecting rods and crankshafts, and the consequence was sudden engine seizure with no warning. The remedy came in two flavors. If the engine failed inspection, you got a new one. If it passed, you got an oil change, with the specification moved from a 0W20 to a thicker 0W40, plus a new filter and fill cap. Here is why that matters in plain language. Oil is not just lubricant, it is a load-bearing film. When the crankshaft spins, it never actually touches the bearing. It rides on a wedge of pressurized oil, a few thousandths of an inch thick. Thicker oil makes a thicker wedge, which buys margin when a bearing surface is not quite right. That is a real engineering answer. It is also a way to help a marginal part survive instead of replacing it. Federal investigators opened a query in January after 36 complaints of engines dying after the fix. 7 months later, that became the full engineering analysis I opened this video with, covering nearly 1 million vehicles built from 2021 all the way through 2026. Engineering analysis is the last formal step before regulators can push for a new recall. Separately, this generation has been fighting collapsing lifters in the cylinder deactivation system for years. A lifter sticks, a push rod bends, the camshaft gets chewed, and you are into the top of the engine on a truck with low miles. Verdict: do not buy one with the 6.2 unless the recall paperwork is in your hand and you understand the file is still open in Washington. If you want this truck, the smaller Turbo Max 4-cylinder sidesteps the whole argument, though watch for leaking radiator hoses, and I would not pay $1 premium for the big V8 right now. Number 11, the GMC Sierra 1500. Same score, 40, same engine, same lifters, same open federal file. The differences are the badge and the price. GMC does add one flourish of its own at the top of the range. On the loaded Denali trucks, the massaging seats, the multifunction tailgate, and the camera trailering system do not all power down properly when you shut the truck off. They keep drawing current. So there are men in this country who paid $80,000 for a pickup and now keep a jump pack in the garage. That is not a defect that will hurt you. It is just an $80,000 truck that cannot reliably be left alone for a weekend. We are 5 trucks in, and the theme is already showing itself. Hold that thought, because it gets much sharper when we reach the electric ones, and one of them lost more value in a single year than most people spend on a car. Take the badge off the table for a second. The question is never whether a truck is good. It is whether it is good for what you personally need it to survive, which brings us to number 10, the Jeep Gladiator, also at 40. The Gladiator is the only pickup on the Wrangler's solid front axle, and it inherits the whole family history. The death wobble is real, well documented, and not mysterious. A solid front axle needs a lot of linkages to steer, and those linkages have joints. When a joint wears and the damper is not up to the job, a bump starts a harmonic vibration that feeds itself, and the wheel shakes hard enough to frighten anybody. Stellantis settled a national class action over it. About 1.1 million owners of 2018 through 2020 Wranglers and 2020 Gladiators, roughly $30 million in benefits, and at the heart of it, a warranty extension to 8 years or 90,000 miles on a failed front suspension steering damper. The claim window closed on the 31st of March this year. If you were eligible and did nothing, that door is shut. On top of that, the Gladiator runs a 2-battery setup, and when the small auxiliary battery degrades, it quietly drains the main one. No warning light, no gradual decline. It just does not start, Verdict. If you want a Gladiator, you want it for reasons that have nothing to do with this list, and I respect that. Just buy it knowing the steering front end is a maintenance item, not a set and forget assembly, and budget for a good steering damper and ball joints on a schedule. Number 9, the GMC Sierra 2500 HD at $37. Bought to work and struggling to show up. Diesels with the Allison transmission are reporting shift lag and harsh engagements right off the lot. The emissions after treatment is the bigger money problem. Clogged particulate filters and dead urea injectors drop the truck into a countdown limp mode. So you get a limited number of miles at limited speed to reach a dealer before it stops being your decision. If you tow for a living, that is not a repair bill. That is a canceled job, a stranded trailer, and a rental. Verdict. If you need a heavy-duty truck, but you are not running serious diesel miles every year, the gasoline engine sidesteps this entire category of failure. Diesel earns its keep on high mileage and heavy towing. Below that, you are buying an emissions system and paying to feed it. Number 8, the Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD. Same 37, same transmission behavior, same emissions hardware. It brings one thing of its own, though, and I am going to deliver it flat. There is a recall on the trailer brake control module where an electrical fault can cause the module to overheat, melt, and catch fire. On a truck designed specifically to tow, the part that controls your trailer's brakes is a fire risk. If you own one, check your vehicle identification number today. Not this weekend. Quick favor before the second half, since it is only fair. If any of this has been useful, hit subscribe. The next 7 get worse. Number 7 is the Ford F-150 Lightning, and this one is not a reliability story. It is a money story. Ford has ended production of the current fully electric Lightning and shifted toward hybrids and extended range trucks. Whatever you think of that decision, it does something specific to your wallet. CarEdge projects 56% depreciation over 5 years on a truck that's stickered around $74,500, landing near $33,000. Some trims were down to 64% of sticker after 12 months. And 2022, Lightnings now advertise around $39,600 on average. Here's the honest split, and it depends entirely on which side of the transaction you are standing on. Buying used, that collapse is a gift. A used Lightning is a lot of truck for the money. The drivetrain is mechanically simple, and the onboard power will run your house through an outage. Buying new, you are volunteering to absorb the steepest part of a curve on a model line the manufacturer has walked away from, that is paying for somebody else's change of strategy. Number 6, the GMC Hummer EV pickup. 9,000 pounds of it. The 2X launched at $89,995, and for 2026, that figure is $96,600 before tax and fees. Used 2X trucks are available under $60,000 all day long. CarEdge puts 5-year depreciation around 40% from $104,000, and one owner's own vehicle history report showed his truck falling below the residual value the finance company had projected for 3 years out. He was upside down against a number that had not even arrived yet. Set the horsepower and the crab walk aside for a moment. The reason this is on the list has nothing to do with how it drives. It is that you cannot buy one new without immediately handing over the price of a decent used pickup in cash for nothing. Verdict. If you genuinely want one, buy somebody else's. The person who paid the launch price already covered your depreciation, and he did it involuntarily. Number 5, the Tesla Cybertruck at 34 out of 100. 10 recalls in roughly 2 years. Panels attaching, wipers, accelerator pedal, exterior lights, rear view camera, drive inverters. Early foundation trucks that changed hands for $150,000 at the peak, now sell in the high 50s to around 70,000. In the first quarter of this year, Tesla delivered 3,519 of them in the United States, down 45%. But the reliability score is not really about the numbers. It is about what the truck asks you to do. Visibility is poor, so you lean on camera feeds to park, and those feeds sometimes lag or go blank. Gear selection and turn signals live on a screen and on touch-sensitive steering wheel buttons, so if the system locks up, you are not driving anything. Owners report sudden, high-voltage shutdowns that immobilize the truck entirely. I have spent a lot of years around machines, and here's the thing I keep coming back to. Every control that matters ought to be something your hand can find without your eyes. That is not nostalgia. That is how you stay in command of 2.5 tons of moving metal. Verdict, walk. Not because it is unpopular, because a truck should still work when the software does not. Number 4, the Chevrolet Colorado at 29 out of 100. This is where the list stops being about money and starts being about safety. In cold weather, the electronic brake assist can fail and force the truck into a limp mode capped at 43 miles an hour. Think about where that leaves you winter and interstate, and your pickup will not exceed 43. Mechanically, the 8-speed automatic has the classic torque converter shutter on low speed deceleration, which is that fine vibration through the floor when you lift off around 30. And the over-the-air updates have been leaving control modules awake instead of letting them sleep, which flattens the 12-volt battery overnight. There is a real irony in that last one. The over-the-air update exists so you do not have to go to the dealer. Then it drains your battery and you get towed to the dealer. Verdict: I would not buy a new Colorado until the braking behaviors close out in a federal filing rather than a software note. If you already own one and you live where it gets cold, that is the item to raise at your next service visit in writing, and keep the copy. Number 3, the GMC Canyon. 29, same as its twin, same brake behavior, same shutter, same battery drain. A mid-2025 update cleaned up the infotainment complaints nicely. The braking and the transmission were not part of that fix. Same truck, nicer seats, higher price, identical problem. Everything I just said about the Colorado applies word for word. Number 2, the Rivian R1T, 18 out of 100. Rivian deserves real credit first. Owner satisfaction is high, the truck is legitimately clever, and the company pushes updates faster than almost anyone in the industry. Now, the Ledger. Air suspension compressors burn out and drop the truck onto its bump stops, which means a flatbed. The 12-volt auxiliary battery is the one that worries me most because when it dies, the truck does not simply need a jump. Owners describe a full wiring harness and battery replacement. Drive unit failures and steering pull show up as well. The 2025 R1T carries 6 active recall campaigns covering seat belts, turn signals, high voltage ground straps, driver assistance software, headlight modules, and rear tow link bolts. Then there is geography, and nobody talks about this enough. Service centers are sparse. A Silverado can be fixed in any county in America. An R1T frequently cannot, which turns a 2-hour repair into a 200-mile tow and a week without a truck. Kelley Blue Book puts the 5-year cost to own on a 2026. R1T at $82,816, with $40,000 of that being straight depreciation on a truck that starts around $72,900 verdict. Do not buy one unless you can point at a service center on a map within reasonable driving distance of your house. That single question decides whether this truck is a pleasure or a problem. And number one, the Ram 1500, 5 out of 100, 5 out of 100. That is the lowest score Consumer Reports has recorded for a pickup, drawn from roughly 380,000 owner responses. A score that low does not come from one bad component. It means the typical owner reported several serious problems in 12 months. It starts with something almost comically small. The proximity keyless entry system draws current when it should be asleep. So the battery goes flat overnight. And a flat battery in a modern truck does not just mean a no start, it means a cascade of faults across modules that were never designed to brown out. Under the hood, the Hurricane twin-turbo inline-six that replaced the Hemi is melting catalytic converters and leaking coolant into the intake. Coolant in the intake is not a leak. That is the beginning of the end of the engine. Owners report overheating and limp mode while towing well under the truck's rated capacity, plus thermostat failures across the family. One man had his in the shop at 800 miles. And if you take the Hemi instead, you get exhaust manifold bolts snapping and lifter tick. Then add the recalls, including trailer brake modules that can catch fire and instrument panels that go blank while you are driving. I want to be fair because Ram did something genuinely right for 2026. The Hemi V8 is back after a one-year absence, and pricing on Hemi trucks came down compared to 2024, bringing back a simpler, proven engine because customers demanded. It is exactly the behavior this industry needs more of. But that does not fix a 5 verdict, and I will say it plainly. Do not buy a new Ram 1500 in 2026, not the Hurricane, not the Hemi, not at any discount they offer you, and they will offer you one. Give the electrical architecture 2 model years to settle down. Watch whether that score moves and revisit it. Then look at what these 15 have in common, because it is not a brand. Almost every failure here traces to something added in the last 4 or 5 years to chase a fuel economy figure or a screen. Twin turbos where a naturally aspirated V8 used to sit. Cylinder deactivation that collapses lifters. Dual clutches instead of torque converters, emissions hardware that strands a working truck, modules that will not go to sleep, batteries drained by conveniences nobody asked for. And then the second pattern, the one that made 2020 different. The fix stopped fixing it. A thicker oil instead of a new engine. Inspection software instead of a replacement. The wrong software loaded during a recall repair, requiring a second recall. Nearly 1 million vehicles now under federal review specifically because the remedy did not hold. So here's the whole thing in one sentence. In 2026, buy the boring powertrain in its 3rd year or later, and buy the truck whose recalls are closed rather than open. Concretely, that means the Honda Ridgeline, which Consumer Reports named the best mid-size pickup made in America this year at between $40,795 and $47,900. If your needs are lighter, the Ford Maverick starts at $28,145 and will do 90% of what most people ask a truck to do. And if you want a full-size, a pre-2022 Tundra with the 5.7 V8 or an F-150 with the 5.0 V8 will still be running when several trucks on this list are scrap. Now, the honest limit on all of that, these are odds, not prophecies. Plenty of men will drive a Silverado on this list to 200,000 miles without a single problem, and plenty of Ridgelines will let somebody down. Reliability data tells you which way the coin is weighted. It does not tell you your result. One thing to do this week, whatever you drive, look up your own truck's vehicle identification number in the federal recall database and see what is open on it. It takes 4 minutes and it is free, and some of you are going to find something on there today. Then tell me in the comments what came back, the make, the model year, and the number of open recalls. I read those, and that list is more useful than most of what gets published. If this was worth your time, subscribe, because next week I am going after the other half of this problem. Not which truck you bought, but what happens after you own it. Specifically, the service menu, the dealer slides across the counter at 60,000 miles. A few of those line items are real, most are not, and I will show you exactly which is which.